Before I start, real quick, I'm just going to talk about the news that I heard this morning. It's kind of a weird morning because I was up pretty early. Like I've been having weird sleep schedule, so I was up around like 3:30 or something like that. Something like that. I mean, it was still dark outside. I was messing around on the computer, and then I saw these weird manic tweets from Reckful, who, if people don't know who he is, Hearthstone streamer, originally WoW streamer, like super big in the PvP scene, world's best rogue, all that stuff early on. When I was into WoW, that's how I knew who he was. I wasn't like as into, I was more of a raider at the time when he was really big, but then when Hearthstone came along, he switched over to Hearthstone, and he was known for the big meme of missing lethal at BlizzCon because he had spell power on board. And I was actually sitting in the front row of that when it happened against, I think it was against Artosis. Might have been Crip, actually, now that I think about it. But like, I didn't really watch him a lot when he played WoW, but I watched him quite a bit when he played Hearthstone. Because at the time, he was like a big streamer, so when he streamed Hearthstone, he was the biggest Hearthstone streamer a lot of the times. And that was like the game was still early on, so if I would look at a stream and he was on, I would watch his stream. And he's like, I don't know, he's from a different generation than me. Clearly, you could tell he like kind of grew up on the internet, but the internet came a little bit later in my life. I mean, not like super late, but you know, like I remember like a time before it existed. So I wasn't, you know, as much like there's a gap between me and like that next generation, but he was like that next generation. I think he was 9 years younger than me, but you know, he was super relatable and funny. And then the more you watched him, you realize like he also had some problems, but he was very open about it on stream. And I think a lot of people don't realize, but I started to realize it more when I started streaming more and doing podcasting more and not getting up every day and going to an office. If you have mental issues, mental problems, this is not a good lifestyle. It seems great because it feeds into a lot of the negative habits that can go along with depression and bipolar disorder and things like that. You like don't want to leave the house, you know, you don't want to have to go deal with people, real people in the real world, and you get to do that through the safety net of your computer, but ultimately you don't get the mental help that you probably need because you're not face to face with reality on a day-to-day basis. And I think it's ultimately a negative, even though I think there's a reason why a lot of people with mental issues are drawn to a streaming lifestyle. And I hope that if anything comes out of this that's positive, it's that Twitch realizes that they've got a real problem on their hands, maybe starts programs to offer mental help to streamers on this platform. Similar, like think about like what the, you know, like the NBA, when a player joins the NBA and then they teach them how to deal with their finances, because next thing you know, like a lot of people are going to want money from you and you're like 19. There's a lot of people on Twitch who have a lot of problems and there's nobody talking to them about it and asking them about it. And then they're dealing face to face. Well, not face to face, but you know, every day they're dealing with an insane amount of trolling, absolute toxic behavior from chat. And sometimes like you look at the streamer and you think, oh, they get it, it's all in fun, but the amount of streamers that you can find clips of them breaking down on stream is insane. And you know, today he committed suicide. And he's one of those streamers who had a breakdown on stream, I think several times. I mean, it's not like personally watch them all the time, but um, when I was up at like 3:30 in the morning, I saw these tweets that he sent out, and I thought, oh man, those are indicative of somebody who's not feeling right now. Um, he was referencing his own insanity. He was reaching out to an ex-girlfriend, and poor her. Um, like the last person that someone reached out to in that moment was you. I mean, that's going to affect her for the rest of her life, I'm sure. But anyway, it's really really sad that in that moment he didn't find anybody to actually reach out to who reached back, I guess, because I don't know the ins and outs of the full story. I don't know if this was something he planned, something he knew was going to happen on this day at this time. I don't know. You know, sometimes people get very prepared for a situation like this. Sometimes it's just the spur of the moment. They get lost in the depression and they just go for it. You know, but I could just say that, you know, I've definitely had moments in my life where I've felt uh, very lost, very down, and I remember, you know, streaming was a real positive for a long time, but then there were moments where it's like you want to turn the stream on, you want to push, you know, you want to push the button and go and do the thing, but it also feels like the last thing that you're capable of doing at that moment, right? Like being entertaining in front of people. Being, you know, one of the things about streaming is being authentic, so it's like you feel like being yourself on stream is not something that you can do at that moment. And when I think about, you know, one of the most sad things for me as somebody who didn't really know him is just to imagine like how it felt those last moments before he actually went through with I don't know how he did it or whatever, but we do know it's confirmed as a suicide. And yeah, and as Captain Smooth saying in chat, his brother also committed to his older brother, who apparently he looked up to quite a bit, also committed suicide. So that's also something that's not very uncommon, is that someone in your family does it, and then I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I can't say for certain if the reason is that there's hereditary, you know, actual genetic reasons why you're more prone to it, or if it's something like it gets introduced as kind of an option. You know what I mean? It becomes a very real part of your experience in your life. But and it's just sad, dude, because anytime you lose somebody who's a, you know, positive for clearly a lot of people are reaching out today. Uh, you know, it's really hard to lose them. It's hard to lose anybody. It doesn't matter how famous or whatever they were. You know, there's always somebody who cares about you. So I don't know. I don't know what else to say. It's really a shitty thing, and I wish it hadn't happened. So I don't want to do the thing where sometimes I don't push the button today because I know like he hadn't really streamed very consistently recently, and there's a lot of times where I'm not streaming very consistently either, and I, you know, it's not like it's my actual main job or anything, so it's not the same, but I can understand maybe where his headspace might have been on certain days. And you know, he wanted to stream, but it didn't happen. But yeah, Captain Smooth also mentioned something earlier that he was somebody who seemed to crave contact more than maybe some other streamers. So, you know, it kind of feels like maybe if he'd been able to do more of that, the IRL streams where he seemed really happy, rather than like the lonely streams in front of the computer. I think it's just you need to find that balance in your life. Yeah, I know that he had bipolar, and I'm pretty sure his brother did too. I don't know exactly about his parents. I don't know like the whole backstory of his family and everything, but I'd heard him talk about that on stream. But yeah, lots and lots of. I mean, he clearly affected lots of people. If you are a WoW player, uh, today all over World of Warcraft, there are people doing memorials and stuff. But you gotta feel like he didn't realize maybe how many people cared about him, right? And that's one of the things that always strikes me about when these things happen, because the person themselves, I imagine, must feel so lonely in that moment, you know. Uh, I think of Robin Williams a lot, although he actually had another mental disease that really had a lot to do with it. But I met him a lot of times actually. He was a big San Francisco celebrity, and growing up, I went to school with Bobby McFerrin's son, and Robin Williams and Bobby McFerrin were really good friends. So he was at you know gatherings that I was at a lot, and he always seemed so damn happy and cheerful and everything like that. And then you know he actually was capable of that as well. The high highs and then the low lows. So I just hope if anybody out there listening to this or watching right now or watching later on a VOD is having a hard time, that instead of going through with it, you reach out to somebody. And if you do, maybe if you use Twitter and nobody immediately responds back, try another avenue. That's not a great place to do it, obviously. um, I honestly don't know uh, the right answer. I wish that I could tell you the hotlines or the whatever, but I don't know honestly. But I know that getting to talk to somebody